There's a cat over here. There's a cat over there. And the wrong one died. And the wrong one died. Welcome to The Wrong Cat Died, the podcast breakdown of the catastrophe. I'm your host, Mike Abrams, and today we have another very fun episode. My guest today is better known for his work outside of cats. You might know him as TheBabyGuyNYC, since he spent 4.5 years as a product demonstrator and personal shopper at Bye Bye Baby in Manhattan. He quickly became one of the most well-respected experts in the baby gear and child safety space for more than a decade. But what you probably didn't know is that he also was in 5 different regional productions of Cats and designed the makeup for 2 others. So, Jamie Grayson, thank you for joining me.
Howdy. Thanks for having me.
I always love meeting regional productions because one of my most fascinating parts of this podcast is hearing what you were told about the show going in. So we'll get there. Mm-hmm. But before we get there, I always love hearing, what was your experience with Cats before you were first in it?
Before I ever did it, when I was in junior high, I saw the tour in Little Rock, Arkansas, where I grew up. And I just remember losing my mind when the cats were in the audience, when you're doing like Green Eyes. And there was a kid behind me yelling about monkeys during the show. Like it was very different, obviously, than any other show I'd ever seen at that point. And because I was never really trained as a dancer, I never thought I would do it. And then that quickly flipped around out of college. But I was like, I'm doing Cats?
Yeah. I love it. So yeah. How old were you when you first saw it in Little Rock?
I was in 8th grade.
8th grade, okay. Yeah,
that was the year I saw Cats and Les Mis. So it was a big formative, year for me. I always love hearing when people go see it the first time, because I do think that's an interesting part of this. And you're seeing it in kind of the early teenage time, right? That's what 8th grade would be 14, 15 years old. How much of that, of the like sexual nature of the show, did you recognize at that age, or was it still kind of over your head? Oh, I absolutely. This is shameful. So Christopher Gattelli at the time was Mistopheles when I saw the tour. And Christopher Gattelli, he's choreographed a ton of stuff. He choreographed Newsies. And my little closeted Arkansas heart had a massive crush on Chris Gattelli. And so one time when I was still living in New York, Chris was at the table next to us. And a friend of mine who knew this story of me as a kid was like, hold please, and walked over to Chris Gattelli. It's like, my friend Jamie had a crush on you when he was a kid. And I was like, ha ha ha, whatever. But there was something about writhing bodies in unitards, especially with Tugger, because part of his costume is a little bit more pronounced than the other male cats. Because they usually put a little piece inside to make the crotch protrude. But yeah, no, it's a oddly sexy, kid-friendly show.
Well, that's where I've just struggled with that, because I don't find it kid-friendly, and I know a lot of kids go see it. And the first time I saw it, I was a adult, and I was watching Victoria's dance going, they're basically doing it on stage, and there's 5-year-olds, in the row behind me. And so I found it really interesting of the cutoff of when do you go and still recognize that and be able to, at that teenage, it's like, oh, you definitely know what's going on, but you're still kind of on the more, what's the right term? It's still a little bit more innocent at that point, where it's not realizing, oh, the ball's an orgy, or all the kind of other chaos of it.
You're also at that age, you're so unsure of really what sex is, period, that it just makes you feel something.
Yeah.
It makes you feel something. And you're not quite sure what that is, but there's really hot guys in tight outfits dancing. And you're like, I'm here for it. Go.
Yeah, it is a confusing show for a lot of people, I think. And I mean, it's such a unique piece in that. And I just was floored when I saw that many kids in the show, and I was like, oh, it's Cats. It's like Lion King, maybe it'll just be fun. And then I started watching it, and I was like, this is oh, like take your kids out of here, please.
Yeah.
And then Green Eyes, which you mentioned at the beginning, scared the living daylights out of me.
Oh yeah.
I can't imagine as a child, having it haunting your
Well,
dreams.
I will say, when there were times like doing matinees specifically, when you're just like dead tired and you know you're going to have 2 of those shows in one day. And the only thing that got me in the mood for the show was doing Green Eyes, and you would see little kids with like whiskers painted on their faces and like little cat ears, and you were like, yep, go for it. And it was this weird, like, that was all of us watching Cats when we were kids. Like, it's what got us into theater in general a lot of the time, so it was that never, with little kids like that, it never caught me as like a weird, sexy thing. When you're in your teens, it's a little different.
Yeah. So let's fast forward to your first production. And I know you did 5 productions and you also designed makeup for 2. What's the order? Like, what came first and when did the first production happen?
My first production was in 2004 at a dinner theater in Ohio. And we all think it's kind of based on when Last 5 Years takes place. Actually, I don't know if you know that musical.
I do not.
But it's a theater in Ohio. There was definitely a buffet on stage, and they would wheel it off, before the show. But sometimes there'd be like a little piece of corn on the floor. But this theater, they actually spent a pretty large amount of money on it. We had a huge pit, and they bought the set from Westchester Broadway. So we had like, the flying tire and the car trunk that opens, and even on the tour, the trunk doesn't open. But we had like a really, really solid show. But that was the first one I did. And I want to say that was about a 4-month run.
Okay. So you're going to have to, I'm a Midwesterner, so you got to tell me, where in Ohio were you?
It was just outside of Cincinnati in a little town called Springboro.
Okay. So
it was at, we affectionately call it La Chlamydia, but it's La Comedia Dinner Theater. And yeah, we all like lived in the cast housing behind the theater, except a couple people in the company. And I mean, it was that particular production has a lot of stories.
That description is beef and boards for my Indiana people.
Very much so. Yeah.
Like the exact same as what you described. They roll the food out. Everyone just goes to town on a buffet before. I went back right when they allowed people back in to see The Sound of Music recently when I was back home. And it was the same thing. It was like the first buffet they had, and everyone just went crazy.
Did they name the food?
I didn't actually.
Like after the character?
I personally did not go eat because I wasn't ready for that experience at that point in the COVID journey. I was a little not ready for it before the COVID experience. And so you add in the COVID experience and it's,
they named the food in Ohio.
Oh, I love that. So wait, what did they name for Cats?
We were joking. We wanted like Rum Tum Tuna Casserole and, stuff like that. But it was stuff like Jenny Annie Dot's buttered corn. Like, it was so lame.
They didn't even they just said the name and then put it in front of something.
One day I don't even eat tuna casserole, but one day I will make Rum Tum Tuna.
I like that. Now you're going to make me, I'm going to be thinking for the rest of today about different food names. And I'm going to email you when we finish.
Great.
I'm going to come back like a day or two and be like, all right, here's all the Cats food.
You got the Cats buffet cookbook.
I'm going to make the Cats named food. Now, okay. So 4-month run is a long time, but my favorite question for this is, and I know you played Skimbleshanks a lot. Were you Skimbleshanks in this particular production?
I was Skimbleshanks and dance captain of this production. Yeah.
How do they tell you in a regional production, how much of the backstory are you given about Skimbleshanks?
So my director and choreographer, Stephanie Lang Bittner, she was Cassandra in the Broadway production. So she came to it knowing everything. So we did the original Broadway choreography. That's all I've ever done with the show. So you do know kind of like the lineage of everything, even though it does kind of get filtered here and there. But you learn a lot about the like relationships between the cats, and then you just kind of like go with it and make up your own stuff and play. Okay. So
Yeah.
were you given 3 words? Because that's like the big lore of the characters.
I don't remember if I was ever given 3 words. We just kind of went through everything, and then you have like a few days of cat class
Yeah.
where you like learn how to listen with your back, kid. Cats don't have thumbs, and passive paw versus active paw versus hiss, and like, there, and you just roll around on the floor with each other, and
I love 2000. The 2016 cast is called that Felinity School.
Yeah.
And that was, I think, like, again, they spent weeks doing that, and to have weeks of learning how to be a cat is a fascinating part of the show.
Yeah. We did not have that luxury, because typically, in a regional production, you have, if you have the luxury of that, you have maybe 3 weeks to put it up.
Yeah.
But there were several productions I did where we would get to show up in like 6 days and then tech it for like 3 and then run it for 2 weeks. And then we were done. Yeah.
Okay. So let's walk through the other 4. Where else did you go? Were they more dinner theaters, more like, how long were they?
I had to actually, this morning I went through and I had to go back and like Google things, because those like 5 or 6 years of my life are very blurry, because I was working at different theaters and then cats would kind of pop up here and there. So in 2004, it was in Ohio. Then in 2005, I did it at Virginia Musical Theater in Virginia Beach. And that was a pretty quick run. But it was a really fun one, and we can talk about that. There were some really fun people in it. Then in 2006, I did another around 4-month run at Circa 21 Dinner Theater in the Quad Cities. And then in 2006 and 2009, I did it at West Virginia Public Theater.
Wow. So you've done it mostly east, but around the country.
Yeah. From like Midwest.
Yeah.
East.
The Quad Cities east.
Yeah. We ate a lot of Bennigans.
Yeah. I assume that most of my listeners are from either the Midwest or New York, just because I'm, from the Midwest. And so I think you're going to find some people that are going to recognize and be at home with some of that. Tell me about which some of the unique parts about doing it in those like regional productions. Like how does that go? How does that differ? Like, it's just such a unique piece, because you got 2 weeks, you got 4 months, you've got a lot of in and outs. I know there's some characters that just like, if there's an injury, there's not as many swings and backups and people to kind of come in.
Yeah, we never had swings. So we did it without swings and without pit singers. So because I dance captained it, I was kind of like, I remember, one time, Thad, who I've done the show with many, many times, he was Tugger in a production. And right after Skimbleshanks one time, the stage manager ran up to me backstage after you like chase off people when they steal Deuteronomy. And he was like, Jamie, can you do Mr. Mistopheles? Can you do the song? And I was like, sure, whatever. He was like, Thad's overheated, because you get very hot and worn out during the show.
Oh, yeah.
So typically, Skimble's back out on stage and whatever, and he does the light pan across, and like McCavity's not there, and then it goes back to the car, and that's where Tugger is. And then you do the whole Mistopheles number. No one on stage knew what was happening. So one of the guys in the show got the light because he realized I wasn't there. And when the light panned up to the car, you have me still fully dressed as Skimble in like the stupid vest and everything. And I just remember seeing everybody on stage in their cat makeup like, like what is happening? So like, yeah, we never had swings. So I had to fill in for a few things every now and then. But I think one of the weirdest things doing it regionally, people as an audience member, they don't understand how hard it is. And there were times after the ball, like you're dancing for like 13 minutes in the ball.
Oh yeah.
And you have people who are just like, and it's like, we would all like, there are times you have to like run off and puke, or like puke in your mouth and swallow it and just keep going. It's awful.
Yeah. So that is such a fascinating part, because that was one thing I recognized. As much as I made fun of it the first time I saw it, I was close enough to the stage to see the physical nature of what went into that. And
I'm sitting here looking at it going, this is insane. Like, it's insane what these people are doing. And then I learned after that on Broadway, it was a rake stage, which I didn't know what that meant until this podcast. But that to me is even more insane. Like, I'm surprised there's a lot of injuries, but I'm surprised there's not more. With how that is. And then you're in a costume, and then some of the costumes are super heavy, and you're in full makeup, and there's only a couple breaks. You're pretty much dancing most of the show for most of the characters. So it's crazy. I want to go back to you became Tugger in Skimbleshanks. Did you sing like that portion of the show and dance that part?
What happened was, our Misto had no problem. So Mistopheles did the whole thing, but like, I knew every step in the show. So like, I did all of the staging with Mistopheles, no problem. But I am definitely not a tenor. And I remember this was a matinee, and our Grisabella's parents were there. I remember this. And I mean, this was back in 2006. This was a long time ago. So Thad has a very, very good voice. Like, he's got a good, like, healthy rock tenor. So at the end, he would take part of it up an octave. And at the time, I was like, I'm going to try this. Shouldn't have. And what came out of my mouth was not right. People on stage definitely were laughing. And who cares, It was a real treat. The audience got something really special that day.
Well, I do think there's so much going on that, like, besides, unless you had some super fans there, most of the audience is not going to know that Tugger is supposed to come out and sing that portion and come dance that portion. Like, most people, especially in a regional dinner theater, I would assume, probably haven't seen it before. Or if they have,
we had a lot of Cats fans, and the weird thing about this is, like, Skimble's physicality is very different than Tugger's. Like,
completely.
It's there in his name. Skimble, the name Skimbleshanks, Skimble is from Skimble Scamble, which means crazy and disjointed. So it means you have, like, crazy legs. So you hold your arms differently, you move very differently. And I had to behave as Skimble doing Tugger choreography, which was a very special moment for the people. So yeah, it was wrong in every sense of the word. It was wrong.
I love that's what I love about the lore of the shows. It's been running for 40 years, so there's just so many examples of this.
Do you know the I'm pooping story?
No.
Oh, so this was on Broadway. This was in the original product. I don't know if it was the original cast, but the original Broadway production. And Victoria's unitard is white, but it has a little bit of gray and a little bit of pink in it, but it's very, very subtle. But during the ball, when they're lifting her, in the press, she had a stomach bug, and I don't remember which Victoria it was, but apparently coming down, she's like, I'm pooping. And they were like, what? And she's like, I'm pooping. And she had completely used the bathroom inside of her unitard and had to, like, run off stage and cover everything with her tail.
I have not heard that story.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It is like, I do. So it's surprising that more of that doesn't, like, maybe it does happen and you don't see those, or you don't experience or notice it because somebody else comes in. But I think about so I grew up playing hockey, and I grew up playing 5 to 6 days a week growing up. There were so many days where I was not physically in good enough shape, ready to do that. Like, I was like, ate the wrong thing for food, or just not feeling well, or have the flu, and you just kind of power through it, or you just don't play. You're doing 8 shows a week in most cases doing this, and it's extremely physical, extremely hard. Like, I'm surprised more of those things don't happen with 30 plus people in the cast, that, like, somebody doesn't have a semi-virus. And now I guess with COVID, they're a little bit more tight, but, like, before COVID, someone didn't have a cold and just wasn't at their peak and had more trouble needing water and struggling, or having a stomach bug, or maybe it happens a lot more and it's just really well masked, but I'm surprised that that's not more common.
It's rough. And I mean, typically at every production I was in, again, we never had swings. So we had a cast of like 18 or 19 people.
Yeah.
And if somebody was out, you were like, whoops. Like in in the Quad Cities, I missed my first show because I hurt myself at the end of the ball and I had to miss a week of performances. So our Bungo Jerry filled in. But it is a tricky thing when you're navigating illnesses and everything and you don't have real understudies.
Yeah, it's like which I was talking to a couple people who did it on Royal Caribbean where they also don't have any understudies. And it's like, nope, one of the twins is going to be gone today. Yep. So it's like, who's going to just be cut out of the show to come in to do one of the more parts that's, more recognized, or a song. What other kind of crazy moments did you have on stage? Was there any other times where you had to jump in or other chaos?
I mean, I remember one time there was a sound issue that was really, really great. During the end, when they're doing a dressing of cats and like Doot is on the tire, you have like Munka Strap and then Tugger are right here. And Tugger, it was, again, he got overheated. And the sound guy didn't notice. So Tugger wasn't there. So we were like, oh, maybe he just had to because it happens. Sometimes you have to go vomit. And he was puking over the mic.
And they kept this mic
Dude
on.
is singing the song, and it's like, you've heard of several kinds of bleh! Like over the things, and we're like, what? But luckily, everything was pretty chill. I mean, the first production, several of us caught scabies from the set because the set was in storage up in Westchester and was not properly cleaned. So several of us got the scabies. Things happen in cats.
Oh, that's just casual. Just, we got scabies.
Casual scabies. And you go to the doctor and because it's Ohio and it's all these gay guys, they're like, the doctor's like, open your fingers. And they're like, oh yeah, you've got scabies. I'm writing a prescription large enough for you and your friend here. Yeah. And I was like, okay, great. And at the time I didn't think he thought we were sleeping together, which was not happening. We just all caught it from the bed rail or whatever, But yeah, there was the scabies. Goodness, what else?
Do you have any crazy fan interactions? Because I know there are great fans for the show, but it sometimes gets a little unique with people who aren't sure what they're seeing. Just certain things come in and they go see it because they have a season ticket, or they just go because it's something to go do. And I've definitely run into a few where I'm like, I don't think that's what they expected. And not with Cats, but with other shows where I've seen people walk out or just be floored. Book of Mormon on tour has definitely caught some people in the Midwest by surprise.
Yeah.
Did you run into any of that, stage door, interesting type of things with fans?
Nothing odd. We had a lot of people that would show up in costume, full face paint and the wigs and all of it. I remember one time in Ohio, I was with the Misto and I at the time we were dating, and we went to Kings Island, and the guy running Son of the Beast was like, wait a minute, y'all are in Cats, right? And we were like, yeah. And he let us ride it over and over and over without getting off. So it's perks of being a local celebrity at a dinner theater.
That sounds about right. That the Kings Island employee recognizes the regional production of theater.
Yeah.
That fits. I did grow up going to Kings Island many, many times. Yeah, it's a good ride too.
And it's really fun. And apparently Son of the Beast is shut down now.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, they had an issue. They got stuck.
Oh.
And so when it got stuck, it stopped. But the Beast is still running.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I remember, and again, I never really considered myself a dancer. I retained choreography very, very well, which is why I dance captained it so many times. But one of the reasons I went to do it in Ohio was I was like, oh, I can go to Cedar Point.
Nope, you're not very close.
No, we did though.
You did make it.
Okay. Oh yeah.
But you're about 4 or 5 hours away still.
Oh, it was a hike. Yeah, but worth it.
Yeah, that's a good time. That's the Cleveland. I'm wondering how many people were listening to this or have no idea what we're talking about. But
yeah, they're like YouTube theme park entertainment videos.
Yeah. I hope you're having a jellicle ball. We'll be right back after this quick break. Okay, so now I'm curious too a little bit about you've kind of finished your run of doing this in cats and you move on to very different things.
Yeah.
Do you ever bring any of your cats kind of like experience into your current work?
Not recently. I mean, I still have like nightmares about the show. A lot of us do. Like, it's like PTSD.
I believe
like,
it. Yeah.
I will have nightmares about, oh, we're going to mount this production in an afternoon and like go, we don't have any rehearsal. It's like, I have not danced in years. Okay, sure. But I mean, I remember one time, like when I lost my job and when I first got into the baby space and I was like, I need to figure out like a way to make money. I was hired to do face painting at a pediatrician opening in New York. And so I was like, oh yeah, I can paint faces. Sure. Yeah. So I go with like a kit of makeup and these kids are like, can you paint me to look like Batman? And I was like, I can do a balloon. I can do a really bad tulip. I can do a car that's really ugly, or I can give you a really good muzzle. I'm very good at cat muzzles.
Yeah.
So all the kids basically just had cat muzzles. But that's it's with my job. I don't really bring in any cats, but cats has not left my life. And like even when the movie came out, you know, I flew back to New York for opening weekend to go see it with people I've done the show with and other people who have done the show. And I mean, Sarah Jenkins went with us, you know, who you interviewed. Mm-hmm. And, you know, it was the most fun I've ever had at a theater in my life because we were all at the same party. Like everybody was there to understand it was, you know, a mess. And then here in Denver, you know, Alamo started doing like the Rowdy Cats screenings. And I never got to go to one because then COVID hit. But I hosted a party at the Alamo here for the Oscars. And I ordered a cockroach costume and got my tap shoes. And I hosted the entire thing as a tap dancing cockroach from the movie.
Did you do, I mean, and you know some of the numbers. Did you do any of the tap numbers? Did you do any of like,
it was carpeted, so it was very unfortunate. But the movie choreo is so different than the show. I just was kind of there being stupid, but
yeah,
the thought mattered.
I do appreciate the movie. The movie's a different podcast. It's what sparked this podcast, but it's a different one. I'm glad that I kind of always thought it was going to have a second life as a Rocky Horror Picture Show type of like radio. So I love hearing that it started because that's where it deserves to be.
And like, I saw cats 3 or 4 times at the movie theater. And one time here in Colorado, I went and I mean, I was howling with laughter and there's a group of like high school theater kids in front of me and they were all screaming. And at the end, there were 3 older women and they were like, are you all theater people? And we were like, mm-hmm. And they were like, we loved it. Did you like it? And I just kept walking. I couldn't even have the conversation with them because there's something about if you have done the show, and again, it is Cats, but you work so hard to do that show. It is so taxing on your body. And when you do multiple productions, and a lot of the productions I did had, you know, 4 or 5 of us that went with each one. You know, so I did hundreds of shows with the same people in very different environments, but like you get very, very close and you take the show itself very seriously, like as like the core of what it is. So when you see that movie and like, it's not to downplay the talent in the movie or like most of the talent, there was some questionable casting, but it's, you know, it was not up to snuff with a lot of us.
It bugged me because even the talent, I still think was some great dancing that I never got to see. It just moved me around so much I couldn't follow it.
Yeah.
But I went to a press showing and filled theater with people that are either press or tied to the show. And people were just cackling. Mm-hmm. And it's not a funny movie.
No.
And I realized very early on, I was like, okay, if this is like, should be a professional crowd. Like there should be a crowd that's here for a reason. And this crowd can't keep it straight. Mm-hmm. This isn't a good sign for when it actually opens. Because I think I saw it on Tuesday and it was opening on that Friday. It's like, this is going to be real bad. And then I talked to a few people who went, who are my friends who are theater people. And they're like, yeah, I had the theater to myself. And so it was a tough run for the show.
The first time I saw it, the theater was empty. I went with my best friend and another guy and like, there were maybe 8 people in the theater, and we were like just gobsmacked by the whole thing.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, this is actually terrible. And then the next night is when I went with Sarah and a few other people, and we knew what we were getting ourselves in for. But then at the end of the Gumby number, Rebels number, we hear a guy behind us go, "Are we supposed to clap at this?"
Yeah.
And we were like, we're here with family. And
I
mean, people were standing up in the aisles and dancing, and it was really something. But you have to all be on the same page going to the movie.
Totally. And that's why it needs to have that like rowdy like you need to know going in that that's it. How would you describe, if you were going like not the movie, but if you had someone that's on tour right now and someone that you know, someone who's done it all over the country multiple times, how would you tell someone who's never seen it what they're about to walk into?
Ooh. Turn your brain off. The score is exactly perfect for what it is. Like with the T.S. Eliot words, like the music matches up perfectly. Like you couldn't write the score to those poems better than he did. Does a lot of it sound like other stuff Andrew Lloyd Webber's done? Yeah. The overture is song and dance, you know. But if you can go and appreciate the dancing component of it at least, and like the vocal stuff, don't worry about anything else. Like it is not like you're going to see Next to Normal or something. Like it is Cats. It's cats dancing in piles of trash.
Yeah.
You know.
Are you encouraging altering their state of mind in any way?
It helps. I love a good whiskey ginger at the theater. I know, you know, when I went and saw the revival, my friend Mamie was in it for a while. You know, she was Grizz for a bit. You interviewed her.
She was great.
Mamie did it with me back in 2006 at West Virginia. She still did it in one breath back then. And Mamie is just one of the best people on earth. So I went to go see her. And then when Sarah joined the company, I went to go see it again. And when Sarah joined the company, fun fact, I got her address from her husband. And because I don't remember my friends' addresses, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
I sent her a 30-pound bag of kitty litter as a congratulations gift. Like I was like, here's your tiny cat.
I love that. She probably loved that too.
Oh yeah. Sarah's a special human, that one. And I mean, even between like, she and I would just tell stories all the time about things like, you know, do you know the tradition, like when somebody leaves the show, they put them through the oven?
I do not.
Oh, so typically when somebody leaves a production of Cats, they open the oven and they put them in the oven at the end of curtain call and shut it, like they're cooking the cat dead. And so there are just certain things. So one of the things that we heard through the grapevine that was also done, and it may or may not be typical, but we used to pretend the tire was a litter box. And so everybody had to poop in the tire at some point. So I would always do it after I bowed, and I would like run up and scratch and squat and like look, like get up and cover it and like run up on the car. But there's just stupid things like that. Like the revival didn't have the pirate sequence in it, you know?
Yep.
So I always did it with that original sequence. And so with the pirates, we would always pretend like one time we were like America's Next Top Model Cats, and we were like strutting the whole thing. Like I had a hook for a hand. One time I had a ribbon dancer stick. Like we would pull stuff out just to be completely stupid. Because you can. Like I think a lot of people don't understand, like Cats, if you are in Cats, it is a really interesting acting and improv exercise, because if you ever do the same show of Cats, you sucked and you should be fired. Cats should be different every time you do it, not only to keep it fresh, but it's like you play and like keep the energy up. And it's a blast. I mean,
it kind of has to be, because there's no story, there's no plot. I mean, it's loose, and so you kind of it is most about being being invited into this experience with a family, and that's why you're supposed to see a different kind of almost version of that every day, because it should be
a version of that day's cat. You know their personality and how they're supposed to generally be, but you should embrace how they are that day, which is why I would like to advise on a tour or a production, because I would like to say, these are the relationships and rumors that you need to be playing. So today you need to go do X. That's my future goal.
Yeah. We played a lot. You know, we still kept the construct of the show and like kept everything to the audience normal. But you know, when you're doing a show for months at a time and, you know, there's no like real dialogue back and forth, you have to act in different ways.
Yeah, I love it. I didn't know about some of those traditions. I mean, it's interesting to cook a cat dead in a show that kills a cat every night too.
Yeah, they shoot that cat right through the roof. Bless her heart.
Yeah.
Did you ever hear, they did a production at Westchester, a guy that I went to college with who worked in the costume shop, worked in costumes at Westchester. And in this production, they did not have the tire. They put Grizz on a flying rig and like flew her up like they did in the revival, basically, but not as good. And so she apparently was terrified to be flown. So my friend Jody from college, I mean, I haven't seen Jody since I graduated, but Jody all the cats are around. Jody somehow snuck onto stage in like a second Grisabella outfit, and they flew him up, but his back was facing the audience so that they wouldn't know it wasn't the real Grisabella. And so we jokingly called it the Griscension. So when I first saw the revival, I did not know Grisabella flew off the tire, because typically it's like a trap that comes down, or like the thing in the cord, you know, the light pod. And when Mamie flew off that tire, I felt my soul leave my body. Like, I was like, what is this? But I'm here for it, you know?
So wait, they were so afraid of being flown up that they had somebody else sneak on
from the costume shop,
to go and every night be flown up.
Mm-hmm.
And what, they just like ducked out quickly
just
behind?
Like scurried away.
Wow. Yeah. I love that. It's like, here's somebody that, kudos to that person too. It's like, your singing is probably that good that we want you still, even though you won't do one of the most important parts of your 15 minutes on stage.
Mm-hmm.
That's I love it.
Was full the Griscension, like back to the audience, the arms Griscension out, flying into the flies.
All the way to their next joke of life. Well, let's pivot to that. Let's go into some rapid fire, and then we'll talk about the Griscension and if that should be happening every night. So if you were not Skimble and you could play any cat one time, do a track, who would you want to do for one night?
Gus.
Yeah. With the pirates.
Yeah. I don't know if the pirates are really necessary.
Okay.
But Gus is, as an actor, like that's the character like we all eventually turn into, is like an old actor that tells stories. And I was one of the weird people that always liked the Gus number. And not that I have the desire to go do cats at this current moment in my life, but if I ever had to do it again, I would love to do Gus.
That's
love.
Yeah, that's you're
I'm
ready
too
for that.
old to do Skimble anymore. I can't. I'm 43 years old.
Are you ready to do Bustafer with it though? Because that's the other part,
I would
right?
do Bustafer. Yeah. Bustafer would be a hoot, but like Gus is, that's the greatest.
What about your favorite song in the show?
My favorite song is absolutely Skimble.
Okay.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And same in the movie. I think Skimble's the best number in the movie too. But yeah, Skimble's fun.
Okay. Who are your least favorite and favorite cats?
My least favorite cat. I mean, honestly, Monkastrap is just really boring, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, like good, Monkastrap is great, but no, I have no need. And I think like my favorite, I mean, it's Jenny, Annie, Dotson, Skimble. They're like the lesbian aunt and the gay uncle of the company. Like,
love it. Love it. As someone who is a baby expert, which cat do you think would be the best with a newborn, and which cat do you think would be the worst with a newborn?
I mean, this is McCavity would not be great with an infant, I feel. McCavity would have some problems, but I also like wouldn't trust Bomb either. Bomb would not be the greatest. I think in terms of being a good mother, it's Jenny.
Of course, yeah. I think that was the one. The one I was trying to think about is like, was there any in the teenage years, like a Victoria or Cassandra, that might be able to be like the fun older sister to a baby?
I definitely think like Cassandra would be the fun older sister.
Yeah,
she and like I think Demeter's a little too chaotic. You know, she's a little frazzled in the brain there.
Yeah, she's been through a lot.
I mean, there's the cat rape. Yeah. You know, we don't need it. But I wouldn't trust her with a kid either.
Yeah.
But,
okay.
Yeah. Cassandra to me would almost be like Elizabeth Shue in the original Adventures in Babysitting. She'd be like the fun one taking the kids out. Yeah. And then Demeter would be like Penelope Ann Miller. Brenda.
Yeah. I'm following you here. I do agree. I did think a lot about this because anytime I put these questions up, I do spend way more time than I would like to admit thinking about.
I never thought I would have this discussion in my life.
Yeah, no, most people, me neither. I never thought I'd have any of these discussions in my life. Okay, so now the $1 million question. I have argued at length that I don't think Grizabella is the right Jellicle choice. So I want to know if you're defending Grizz or if you would like to send somebody else to the Heaviside layer.
I would like to defend Grizz, but it's not her time yet.
So I agree with that.
Let Gus go, the poor old thing. Like, get him out of here. Let him rest. Let him like come back as another cat. Let him be a little kitten. Grizz, like, if at the end of this show, if we want to break it down to like, if this plot really matters. She's supposed to be accepted and redeemed at the end of this show. So why do they just kill her?
That is my like current like question. As I've gone through this and talked to more people, you can buy me on the redemption story, but I'm with you there. Is like, why do you redeem and then immediately like give her a year?
Yeah, she doesn't need to be euthanized. There's nothing wrong with her.
Yeah, let her be back with her family.
Gus
enjoy the time. I'm with you. I don't think I have a lot of arguments here. I think this is where my current serious stance on who should be picked is that right there. Bring her back to the family, and let's send Gus. Or I still really curious is when does old Deuteronomy's time?
Yeah. Do you know who's supposed to replace him?
It's supposed to be Monkistrap, right?
Yeah. Do you know why? Do you know what your visual cue is as to why it's Monkistrap replacing him as an audience member?
No.
Typically in the staging, you have Doot up on the tire, and then second in height on the set is Monkistrap, and then Tugger is here because they're both Doot's sons.
Yeah.
So Monk is the next in command.
Yeah, he's the Prince Harry.
There are things in this show.
William.
There are things in the show, like I remember the first time I did it, like even having to do with the tails. Like there are things an audience would never pick up on. And like everybody's tails are kind of womp womp hair, but Mistopheles and Cassandra have braided tails, and their tails are braided because they are purebred and they have magical powers.
Okay. I don't think I knew that one.
There's all kinds of. I mean,
the one that really surprised me because I just didn't know much about the twins. But the twins are telepathic, and they will sense stuff before it happens. So if you watch them, if somebody comes out, they'll turn to that part of the stage before it happens, and that's like wild to me.
Yeah, Cassandra also has psychic powers, but we never did it with the twins. We never had the twins.
The twins are an easy cut when you're light on cast. And so I like that. I didn't know about the tails. I knew about the collars. That's the other one, is the collars are the ones that have homes potentially or owners. Yeah. Which is like the, I forget, there's 5, I think, with collars, but tails, that's a new one. I got to see if that's on if that's even on the crazy fan site. That might
I haven't even looked to see if that's on there.
That might need to get added on there.
And I think that was something that was, again, because my director, choreographer, like she played Cassandra, so she was very aware of this. But the last time I performed in Cats, I designed the makeup and helped with the wigs. And then after that, I also did another production where I just designed makeup. But yeah, it's a whole thing, Cats, man.
Well, I'm sure we could talk for 5 more hours on it, but how can people stay in touch with what you're doing now? And maybe even, I don't know if you should post some of these old clips. I'm sure you have somewhere hanging out from the 2000s in Ohio.
I have an Ohio DVD. I have the West Virginia Public where I did it with Mamie. I also have the one I wish I had photos of, though, was Virginia Music Theater, because this one, there were 2, maybe 3 kids from the Governor's School of the Arts in Virginia that were in the company. And it was Adrian Warren and Grant Gustin, who's the Flash.
Wow.
So like they were 16 years old doing the show with us. And like I had to teach them the show. And like they're both incredible. But now it's like you look at that and it's like I knew from the beginning like Adrian is a star, you know. But it's been really fun to like watch their like career trajectory and like a few other people that I did the show with. But I wish I had the Virginia Music Theater production.
Well,
like something
hopefully you can post some stuff here and show the world the early regional version. The King that person at Kings Island is going to be thrilled.
You know what I might admit here for the first time publicly? Some of my friends know this. And like whenever I do a show, I tell people in the cast. But are you aware on YouTube there's a clip called Mr. Mestoff?
I am very aware. Do you know him? Because I have been working hard to get in touch with him.
I'm the one who put that on YouTube. You
are the one who put it on YouTube.
I was not in that production, but I do have that entire production on DVD. It is something. I know who that is because he was an emergency cast member in Ohio. So he was basically
also like a dance. So I don't want to out all the stuff because I figured out which theater it was as well. And I figured, and I reached out to them when they did not respond to me, asking for the cast list and all this stuff. And I was told, what I was told from my research of this was that this person knew the choreography, knew the dance, but wasn't actually in the show. And it was a very emergency day where somebody like either went out midway through the show or like it was a very last second.
Yeah.
And it was like, I'm not really capable of doing it, but I know the number. And so I can at least go out there and and get through it. But he owned it. Like he went out there. That's the thing.
Like I will never completely mock someone's talent. But what I will say is he had a video of our production in Ohio. He choreographed that production. And so, or the production that this clip is from on YouTube, he choreographed that show. So good for him for going in. Like I will never mock anything. Is it hysterical? Absolutely yes. But when things like that happen, you have to embrace the absurdity of it. You know,
I hope that he's like, I don't feel like anyone's making fun of him because I feel like he knew, like I can't do any of it. So it's like, I can't criticize.
Couldn't either.
I can't criticize any of these people. I can't dance or sing or do like even sniff these dance numbers. And so I love that he went out there and just was like, this is what you're going to get because I'm still the best choice right now that we have.
That is exactly how I would feel if somebody had the clip of when I had to do Mr. Mistopheles' Skimbleshanks.
Yeah.
Like if somebody had that and put it online, it'd be like, yeah, own it. I own it. That is me. I messed up. It is hideous.
Yeah.
Like, great. We love it.
I still want to. He's in my top 5 people I want to interview.
Really?
Yes. For this show. So if we might be talking once we hang up on this recording here. Okay, so
but yeah, that's my fault.
I love it. It was in 2000, I think 6 or 8. It was early or late 2000s. It was west
is what I'll say. It was west of the theater, was in the more West Coast than it was East Coast. Oh, maybe I'm wrong.
No,
okay.
no. It was in Jersey.
Oh, I've got some different. I reached out to a different theater.
No, this was Jersey.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
now I had it in a West Coast city.
No. So here's some more interesting on this one. So there's another cast member in the show who played the role of Brown Cat. And Brown Cat is not a role. Brown Cat, whatever. But my boyfriend at the time was doing a production of Fiddler in Hilton Head. And he called me and he's like, Jamie, when you come visit, we have a DVD. I have to show you this girl is in this weird production of Cats a friend of mine has on DVD. So when I went down to go visit Paul, I was watching it and I was like, wait a minute. I know this guy. He was in the first production of Cats I did. And then the Mistopheles number happened and everything in my body collapsed because I was just like, what is happening? But Brown Cat is Jenny Anydots. She did the Jenny Anydots track, but they did not do the Gumby number because he didn't know how to set it. So it goes straight from like, who could it be, to Tugger. They cut the entire thing out. So there's no Jenny Anydots. It's just Brown Cat. Okay. But Brown Cat, when he pulls the ribbon out, gets caught in it. She's the one who catches the teacup that he pulls the scarf out of. That's Brown Cat.
Brown Cat.
So, and Brown Cat, the girl that plays Brown Cat was famous on YouTube for other reasons we don't need to go into, but that's what we were fascinated about.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I clearly the research I found was incorrect. I was pointed in a different direction by some other people.
Yeah. It was Phoenix Productions in Jersey.
Got it. Okay. Mm-hmm. Well, one day that's up there. The other one I really want to talk to a street tugger. The rapping tuggers.
Oh yeah. Oh,
that's my other one. So I'm just putting this out there for the universe.
Yeah.
Of people who might know street tuggers or that might be interested in coming on to talk about the experience of that version of Tugger.
Well, I do know, because I'm new to the land of TikTok, one of the guys who did Cats in Australia just popped up in my For You, and he was the rapping street tugger.
Was a street tugger.
Yeah,
okay.
They kept street tugger in Australia.
Yeah, they did. I knew that, but I got some people to reach out to.
I'm like, no, and the thing is, he was also white, and they kept the dreads and braids on him as street tugger. So it's a little strange, to be honest.
It was a strange decision from day one.
Oh yeah.
But again, 40 years worth of the show, I guess you occasionally throw some Hail Marys out there that don't work. But okay, how can people stay in touch with you?
On Instagram, I'm just the Jamie Grayson. If you, for some reason, have questions about car seats or something.
Yeah.
And on Facebook, it's just Jamie Grayson. But I don't.
And TikTok?
Jamie Grayson on TikTok.
All Jamie Grayson, easy enough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being an amazing guest. This was a ton of fun. I loved learning about all these new things I didn't know. You taught me a lot. I feel like you should be hosting this. I will when Anne, I will assume by the time this airs, Anne's will have aired. Yes. Anne texted me and she's like, do you know this podcast? I was like, yes, I've listened to several episodes, of course. And she's like, I think you need to be interviewed because your head is full of garbage. And I was like, yes, then. Because again, this could be hours of discussion. That's what this is here for. Maybe we'll have a part two. Someday. We should do a follow-up roundtable with 3 or 4 of us. I would love that. I would absolutely love that, to have a handful of people that did it in various parts and have. Yeah. I did that with the regional, get a tour cat, Anne, get Sarah, get a broad spectrum of. Yeah, I did a big an event with the the tour 3, so the 80s cast. Okay. And so I've done a couple, bigger groups. So I think we've got a future here. We're going to put this in the work. We're going to put all this out into the world, and the Jellicle world will come back to us.
Yeah, just like Grizz did.
Exactly. Reborn every night, 8 times a week. Well, thank you again, and thanks everyone else for listening to this episode of The Wrong Cat Died, the podcast breakdown of the catastrophe. To follow along, you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or anywhere else you listen to podcasts. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at The Wrong Cat Died, or check out our website, thewrongcatdied.com.